So I think all of us have joined. Many thanks to all the speakers from the previous roundtable and panel discussion. I think it has been very exciting, and we're all enthusiastic to share this morning's perspective about artificial intelligence. It's now my really great pleasure to welcome you all to the second morning panel discussion, where I'm more than delighted to host very interesting people around the table, which I will introduce. Before that, I'd like to mention that it has been really a significant challenge for us to find a woman as a participant in this roundtable. Virginie, thank you so much, and no offense, guys, we'd really like to have you, but it's also good to have, I wouldn't say gender equality, but at least representatives from women joining us this morning. I will now take my notes because the experiences of all those panelists are something I cannot remember and I always have to read. Basically, following a confirmed experience in marketing and sales among several therapeutic areas at local and European levels, Virginie Lasserre, our woman panelist today, has moved to market access and external affairs in 2017, raising awareness on access to innovation. He is now committed to building partnerships with healthcare innovators in order to contribute to Johnson & Johnson Open Innovation Strategy. Welcome, Virginie, and thank you so much for being here today. Second panelist.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your invitation. Thank you.
Thanks, Virginie. Second panelist is François-Henri Boissel. He has graduated from an MBA in 2004, with major in finance and economics, and started his work life as principal investor with Lehman Brothers in London, then in Tokyo. He co-founded Nova Discovery in 2010, and for those who don't know about Nova, the company is specialized in stimulating clinical trials to improve new drug R&D, where those in silico trials will never replace clinical studies on human subjects, but rather help optimize their design with a view to improve proof of concept, reduce financial and ethical costs, and accelerate time to market approval. Our second pharma player today, Philippe Majon, is an immunologist. He's head of immunoinflammation at Perrier, and he is user of artificial intelligence and related computational methods to support drug development, from disease to modeling to target identification and virtual clinical studies.
Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everybody.
Franck Lemeur, joining us today also, is pharmacist. He's graduated from HEC Business School and has 24, let's make it 25, Frank, years of experience in the pharma industry in several positions, global and of course in operations. Frank is CEO and founder of TechToMed, which is a consulting company dedicated to health tech. TechToMed's motto is to create better link between high-speed technologies, innovation, and pharma, focusing on how technology impacts pharma agenda from R&D to patient support.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Frank.
Thank you, Julie.
Last but not least is Yann Gaston-Maté. And Yann is co-founder and CEO of ICTO. He's an engineer from École Polytechnique and owns a master's degree in genetic biology and biochemistry from AgroParisTech. He spent roughly half of his career in the pharmaceutical industry at Servier, Ipsen, Integration, and the other half of his life in life science consulting companies at Capgemini, Bearing Point, or Acceptance Strategy. He has led the development of ICTOS since its foundation and managed fundraising, business development, and team recruitment. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for having accepted the invitation of joining us today. And I would like maybe to start the discussion by asking each of you to contribute about how do you see or do you see any new paradigm in the healthcare industry due to artificial intelligence? How do you see things? And maybe, François, if you would like to open the discussion, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. Well, I'm always a bit wary of talking about disruption, but certainly, as all of you know, the pharma industry is ripe for at least an evolution of the drug R&D paradigm, which has been historically defined by experimental approaches, translating into a lot of serendipity, trial and error, and therefore maybe not an optimal use of scarce resources, whether those resources are financial or experimental units, such as human subjects. So I guess the introduction of a healthy dose of engineering sciences into this paradigm hopefully will translate into improved R&D capabilities from an innovation standpoint, using formal models of pathophysiologies in order to unlock new discoveries, but also in clinical development, where it's not so much a matter of supporting new discovery, but rather optimizing processes and clinical study designs with the ultimate objective to speed up development process so that patients can have access to more innovative products sooner, reducing both ethical and financial costs in absolute terms. For instance, by identifying optimal responder profiles before a pivotal study, and therefore reducing sample size as well as the risk of exposing non-responders to new therapies. And also something that is much harder to gauge and quantify, but we can also assume that those predictive technologies will improve probability of success, or conversely enable drug developers to identify failures in the making upstream.
Thanks, François. Virginie, maybe you want to react to this?
Yes, with pleasure. And I think that we can all acknowledge that it's well known now that in pharma, artificial intelligence has already an impact across all the entire value chain, from the lab to the market, and also creating opportunities across all the healthcare pathways. So it seems that the potential of artificial intelligence is to be unlimited, but maybe we can highlight two main dimensions. First of all, in R&D, as mentioned by François Horry, to inform research decision, innovate, improve in trial design, to accelerate time to market. And here we have also some concrete examples that we can share with some guys around the table. We do have within Janssen some partnership with the French ecosystem, so also with Nova Discovery in silico clinical trial in oncology, but also partnering with ICTOS to increase speed and efficiency of small molecule drug discovery. But there is also another dimension very important for us. It's in market access and real world evidence. The objective here is to better understand disease management and treatment outcome, and also to improve evidence of economic value. That we will cover that later today, I know, but that's also very important. So in that, we do have also some concrete example. We are using machine learning to interpret data for the French National Health Insurance and to better understand treatment lines in multiple myeloma. So that's also something that could be useful and be important for citizens, for patients, but also for the healthcare professional. So you know that beyond all the use cases that will be discussed today, artificial intelligence is also changing an organization structure and our collaboration model. But let's see that later today.
Thanks, Virginie. Maybe, Philippe, you might have another opinion on that.
Well, first of all, obviously, I will echo what Virginie has said, because very clearly digital transformation and AI is going to help building up the health industry 4.0, as we call it. On my side, I can comment more precisely on the impact on this part of our activities, which are related to developing new medicines, new drugs. And here, after 3 years of using those technologies to support our clinical development, well, actually all developments in the field of autoimmune diseases, I am on the opinion that this is a true revolution. It is really transforming as we speak the way we develop new drugs. And the reason for that is we can think of developing a new drug as a sequence of decisions to be made. For example, choosing the right therapeutic target, the right drug, the right dose for the drug, and then, of course, the right patients to enroll in our clinical studies. And in fact, for all those important decisions, we can think of building up predictive models. And for this, assembling, in fact, specific sets of data like molecular profiling data of patients, data from empirical experiments conducted in laboratories, and so on and so forth. And the value for us of artificial intelligence is to capture the meaning, the information, the knowledge, which is, I would say, embedded in those data, both massive and multimodal data to build up those predictive models. So really, it's going to, as François mentioned, to help us anticipate and to predict, upfront and very early on what will happen down the line, and thereby, of course, trying to be right in the first instance and also moving faster. And my last point to actually, I would say, illustrate what I'm saying is that there are clearly signs as of today that artificial intelligence is impacting the drug discovery part. Drug discovery, classically in our field, takes, let us say, 5 to 7 years. And there are no examples of drugs which are making it to clinical evaluation within 1 to 2 years. And I think it's only the beginning. So we're going to see more and more impact of AI and related technologies on the efficiency of drug development.
Thanks, Philippe. Frank, what do you think?
Well, I think, okay, I will be more on the side of consulting company working with pharma on what our IA and new technology could impact pharma agenda. So I agree with all what has been said about drug discovery, timeline to access more quickly to the market. On my side, my experience is we are going with pharma in a more and more complex product era. Especially with rare disease, precision medicine drugs, etc. And most of the time, the question asked by pharma is how to detect and how to find a patient with rare disease, for example. So the topic for us is more about how pharma could use IA embedded technologies that could help the doctors to assisted diagnostic to find patient or to optimize patient pathway with their disease. So it's interesting to see that IA can impact the whole pharma agenda. There is big slot to do, a big work to do on discovery because, as has been said, we see that there is a lot of disease with unsatisfied needs and that needs new discoveries. But we see also among the patient pathway and patient journey that there is a lot of pain point where IA could help the patient and the doctors to have a better engagement.
Thanks. Jan, what about Ictus? How do you see this new paradigm?
Well, as you know, Ictus is engaged into really early stage drug discovery. I mean, basically drug design, helping chemists identifying the optimal molecules, which can be, a good drug candidate earlier on. And clearly we see a big transformation and very fast transformation happening in the industry. Whereas when we launched Ictus, basically 3.5 years ago, those technologies were unknown, and now all the industry is very quickly converting and to those technologies, implementing those technologies, not only just to evaluate their impact, but now really to starting deploying them full scale, either investing internally or working with partners such as Ictus. So we clearly see a very fast shift in the mindset. Of course, there is still a lot of work to do regarding embracing how those new technologies will actually change the way to conduct research, the way to conduct drug development. I think there is still a lot of thinking and experimenting and being able to get the global vision on what will actually be the impact of those technologies on the business processes of research and drug development, which is something which clearly is something still very new, and we haven't measured the consequences yet. Also, those technologies are still new, fresh, and need to progress. And actually, at Ictos, we are really keen to confront our approaches to real life examples, and to learn and being able to improve the technology based on the feedback from the collaborations we have and the feedback from our customers. And I think it's very important to understand that chemistry is very hard, biology is very hard. There is no magic bullet technology, and we should not expect such type of magic bullet solution. And I think progressing, drug discovery and development, the productivity of R&D in pharma is a very long-term challenge, very complex and multifactorial challenge. Many different types of technologies are needed. And of course, data and AI and everything we can leverage from data will play a major role. On the other hand, look at the fantastic revolution of the RNA vaccines, which it's not specifically data related or AI related, and they have succeeded into bringing new drugs to the market in 12 months, which is for me unprecedented. So we should be modest also and think that there are also other progress in other areas which enable progress in this industry. But just to summarize, I've been working in pharma or either in pharma or for pharma as a service provider for the last 25 years, and I'm really impressed of the speed of change which is happening, and the real potential of transforming and improving R&D which lies into those new approaches and new technologies.
Thanks, Jan. That's very inspiring, and I couldn't agree more with you than this basically parallel with what is happening with the RNA vaccines. And if I can make a metaphor, we're basically seeing the same thing in terms of collaboration between young biotech companies, which were probably unknown like 10 years ago, which might be the case for BioNTech, for example, if one has to take one example. And basically what you guys with Nova Discovery and Ictos are doing, hopefully you will have the same path over time.
We hope so.
Crossing our fingers for you guys.
Absolutely.
But in the end, it also debates the cards in terms of collaboration between the pharma industry and the more flexible, agile players from biotechs. And Virginie, while we were preparing for today's events, you mentioned your examples and experience about this. Maybe you want to share with the audience some elements.
Yes,
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry.
Maybe let's go with Virginie first, and with you, Jan, afterwards.
Of course. Sorry, I got mixed up.
No. That's fine. So yes, for sure, collaboration are simply essential, if I can say. If we want to move faster, if we want to gain in agility, we can do not this on your own. So we need absolutely to mobilize, to mutualize, expertise, resource, funding, brain, people, to really accelerate the usage of artificial intelligence to get better and personalized medicine. So this is exactly the meaning of the strategic choice that we made at Johnson. And over the past decade, Johnson & Johnson Innovation has really accelerated its open innovation strategy with the establishment of Innovation Center, G-Labs worldwide. And really the purpose is to collaborate in a secure and trust frame, if I can say, with international researcher, but also with the innovation ecosystem and also with startups. So clearly in France, we do have the same ambition, we do have the same mindset, And that's why we really, for more than 3 years now, we have built some concrete partnership with the French ecosystem. It's important to for many things, but maybe the first one could be to highlight the need that we have to access to high quality data. It's clearly a challenge and a key challenge at the core of any artificial intelligence project. And that's probably that generates unprecedented need in terms of collaboration and data sharing between pharma and pharma, between medtech and startup, and also with the public stakeholders. So maybe this is what is new, and probably with the crisis that we face now for more than 1 year, it's also accelerates the way of partnering all together and the way of mutualizing our energy. So maybe some concrete example here. The first one that I would like to cover, and Jan, please comment after with more details. It's the Melody project. It's a European project. It's quite a new and innovative one because it's a consortium of 10 major pharma companies that decided to share that chemical library to train predictive algorithms for drug discovery. So I think it's quite innovative, and it shows really that also the big pharma is changing their mind, and now we are really working more together to accelerate drug discovery. And recently in France, with the French ecosystem, Johnson has signed a contract also with Prairie. Maybe you know Prairie, it's one of the 3 IA institutes that was set up 3 years ago now. So it's a Paris Artificial Intelligence Research Institute. So it's a group of academics. So meaning that there is the CNRS, INRIA, also the Institut Pasteur, Université of Paris and PSL. And here again, the purpose is to mutualize and to build all together quite a standard of scale of artificial intelligence in health. So that for me, concrete example that show that we are really moving fast, trying and test new approach and collaborative and increased approach.
Jan, please.
Maybe, Jan, I don't know if you want to comment more about Melody because you're part of this consortium also. So
Sure.
maybe
Yes,
it's fine.
absolutely sure. So just the first thing I want to say, and I will say a little more about Melody, is that I do believe that collaboration between pharma and AI companies or technology companies is essential, because again, drug discovery and development is very complex and multifactorial and requires a lot of different types of expertise and concrete real-life experience and well-thought processes which have been developed over the years. And this is what young startup companies are lacking. Clearly, they are lacking data. By the way, that's one thing. The pharma hold the data usually, and of course there are some public data, but still, a lot of very valuable data is within the databases of the pharma companies. So of course, it's important to work with pharma companies for young AI companies just to access those data. But we are also lacking, the experience of how research is conducted, and many different things that are hard to grasp when you look at a problem from a technology angle. So I think it's very important to have this in mind, and it's really important. It's a success factor actually to be able to bring together some young companies. We are really good on technology and focus with one angle to look at the problem which may have been overlooked by pharma, but on the other hand, the pharma companies have those global vision and experience. So regarding Melody, yes, this really I think highlights I think the challenge, the very big challenge actually of progressing beyond a certain point in this process, because in a way what Melody is trying to do is to say, okay, if we want to be able to predict in silico what would be the characteristics of a new molecule, we need experimental data, as many experimental data as possible for many different pharma companies who have actually made molecules and tested them. And basically the general idea is to say, okay, if we are able to use the data from 10 pharma companies rather than just use only Janssen's data or Merck data or Sanofi data or whatever. If we are able to share those data together, we can build better models and have much higher performance, and then go make progress towards in silico drug design, rather than to have to make molecules which will be inactive, for example, or will have no metabolic stability, or will be not soluble. You can test them in silico. It's much faster. You only have to make the compounds and test them, which will have high probability of meeting the endpoint. And that requires this concept, which was pioneered by Hugo Solmans at Janssen. Actually, the challenge was to say, okay, let's go and meet and bring together all those big pharma companies. And as Virginie said, I think there are 10 pharma companies in this consortium, and let's convince them to mutualize their data, to make them available for startup companies such as Ictos and Okin, who are the small SME members of this consortium, to build sophisticated machine learning models based on those data. And I think that's a very fantastic initiative, actually, that was led by Hugo at Janssen, to be able actually to convince all his counterparts at big pharma companies, and to be able basically to put all those data together with a very smart way, basically, where the pharma make their data available without disclosing the chemical structures, without revealing actually their IP and know-how, which also poses some technical challenges and scientific challenges, which are very fascinating. But we do have a lot of hope that this will actually enable to demonstrate the value for pharma companies to share their data with the community, with their competitors, and being able basically to contribute to the global progress, and not only to keep their progress for themselves. So that's it's a very interesting project. We are very happy to be in it, and we hope that it will actually generate great results.
Thanks, Jan. Frank, what's your perspective on this? What are your thoughts of someone that is in between the two worlds?
What I see is that in a few years we have this question of partnership, and for pharma with technological actor or data center, we have see some acquisition like Roche try to get data with genomics and clinical data to have their own data set, qualified data set, and to work on it, and to get new discovery and new opportunities, and to cluster patient population for new drugs. So we see that now many of the big pharma are having this kind of reflection of getting a consortium of data, coalition, to try to access to data, but also to access to technology. You mentioned Okin, you mentioned Ictos. Ictos has mentioned himself that Okin is one part of the companies that have deal with other pharma also. So we see that there is an acceleration. But when I discuss with pharma, the problem is most of the time competencies also, data science, and also methodologies. So this is why there are partnership with specific companies, but also the qualification of data. Before starting my own company, I was part I was CEO of a startup looking for data, medical data, especially ECG. And I went to French academies and hospitals, and what I had was papers. So there is also a lot of work. There is a big amount of data in France, in a country, in hospital, but they are all also thinking how to valorize and to enrich those data to be used by algorithm. And they are also finding algorithm to enrich the data. So you see that there is a lot to do to merge all this pool of data and to use it in specific project.
Thanks, Frank. Philippe, what are your views on this? What is your experience?
Well, again, I will echo some of the previous comments from the pharmaceutical industry perspective, as we see the power of artificial intelligence and related technologies, obviously we're trying to build up within our company, within Servier, some of this expertise internally. And the way to do that fast is to rely upon collaborations with dedicated companies working on digital health and AI. And as far as we're concerned, we have set up some collaboration with Okin, Ictos, who are also part of the Melody consortium, which is a great example of so-called federated knowledge. I think it's very nice to see those big companies, which are competitors, being able to collaborate to some level to create knowledge. It's beautiful. More generally, I would say what we're seeing now is a convergence and a synergy between life sciences and the digital world. And at the end of the day, the only way to capture the value of this will be open innovation with a level of transversality and multidisciplinarity, which is totally unprecedented. Basically, we will have, chemists, biologists, drug developers, talking to people doing nothing but computational analytics or data sciences or machine learning. And the only way to do that is through, obviously, various types of collaborative networks. And I just want to add up, it's actually a challenge to reach this transversality, but I think it's also a great human experience.
Thanks. And maybe to close insights around this, François-Henri, would you like to comment?
I'm not sure I'll have any interesting thing to add to everyone's comments. Maybe speaking about our own experience at Nova. So we're natively partnering with pharma companies. As Virginie just mentioned in her opening comments, we have a partnership ongoing with Johnson. We have other collaborations. So given the complexity of the field at this stage, in silico clinical trials clearly is not yet a commodity. Large pharma organizations do need to rely on external specialized smaller vendors such as Nova. I don't really want to steal anyone's thunder or discuss the organizational aspects, which I believe is discussion point number 4. But the very nature of pharmaceutical development's job, the fact that it's extremely sequential and naturally becomes a bit siloed, is a challenge when trying to adopt those new natively collaborative approaches where you need to think in a transversal capacity. So, but I think we can expand upon this later in the discussion.
We can jump in directly. I mean, that's the perfect transition. I really appreciate your help managing the panel today. But I mean, the impact on organization and the way it affects, both talent recruitment, talent within the organization, and how it can basically work on collaborative aspects is of very high importance. So feel free to jump into the subject, François.
Okay, so I think from a tactical standpoint, those technology providers such as Nova should not be positioning those approaches as major disruptions. That's pretty much the easiest way to have a graft rejection. So you need to be subtle, about how you bring about change, and also recognize the specificities of large organizations. What I would say is, again, that those technologies call on a plurality, of subject matter experts. So you need to bring around the table a lot of different profiles, and large organizations usually build silos. It's just the nature of things. It's certainly not a criticism. It's just a matter of fact. And so we need, from an organization standpoint, to find the right entry points within those organizations to progressively implement, in a sort of very subtle way, those changes. So how will pharmaceutical firms look like in 20 years' time from an org chart standpoint? I do not know today, but I'm willing to bet that there will be less silos and much more transversal teams.
Who wants to add something on this? Philippe, maybe?
Well, yes, I started actually to allude to this. I agree with François. This is the way it should be. Of course, in large, I would say, classical pharmaceutical companies, it's not always the case. To me, I think the challenge for all companies is not so much at the level of organizations, because at the end of the day, you can solve this part by investment. I mean, basically, setting up an IT department and recruiting actually people coming with a new mindset. And in fact, this more than organization, I think the change has to be driven at the level of the culture, the mindset, the behaviors, and I think this is perhaps the most difficult part. But I think this is where we need to put efforts and time in the acculturation to those new technologies and the power. And on my side, what I see around me is a resistance to this, because people are clearly afraid to see AI, taking their jobs. Basically, that's the part. And then we have to explain, but it's not a threat. Or obviously, it could be a threat, but it's more of an opportunity if you capture the value of those technologies to make better what you've been doing in the past. So I think this is really, I would say, on our side at Servier, this is the way I see it, at least the challenge that we are facing right now. So transversality definitely is of the essence.
Yes, I would like to comment on that, Julie, and I'm fully aligned with what Philippe said, and I think that really pharma has started to change now, but now we really must to accelerate, if I can say, and definitely operate an internal mind shift to complete digital transformation. So I agree. I think it took times. I think it has to be repeated a long time ago, because it's not so intuitive. And just to give you also an example, at Janssen, we for 3 years now we have launched an internal awareness program on digital technology. So 3 years dedicated, with people dedicated, with regular communication, explanation, external expert that explain and show use case that we have, and explain all the consequences that artificial intelligence or any new technology can have and may have on their job. And I think it's very important to continue that, and also to help really the team to better integrate artificial intelligence and open innovation in the strategy. But also we need to continue and to help probably the public sector to train also, and to give some pedagogy about the data usage from citizens, just to ensure that we can operate again in a secure and transparent way with artificial intelligence and data and health data. So I think that we need to have both this kind of training, internal pharma, but also with all external stakeholders that we have. So healthcare professional, patient, everyone.
Maybe an observation about pharma organization in digital transformation. We see most of the time a unique chief digital officer for the whole pharma company, that is sometimes coming from different sources, sometimes from entertainment, from retail, or from pure R&D. And the problem is that it depends on the digital application in your pharma agenda. If you are speaking of R&D, you need maybe to have someone that is more experienced on digital data, health data, and drug discovery, to have ready to address the right agenda of R&D. And if you speak of commercial and data enrichment and segmentation and how to re-engage your professional and patient as interaction, is this somewhat different. So most of the time, what I see as an observation is you have a unique chief digital officer that is leading all the topics and the agenda, and it's quite complicated to address each question. It's different for industry. For example, if you speak of industry 4.0, you see that the data used for transplantation, for temperature, etc. So maybe blockchain, for example. So you have different challenge on different part of the agenda. So it's like for me, it's observation. Is it possible to deal with all this large agenda when you are unique, experienced people?
That's a good question. Jan, do you have any ideas, insights on this? You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I was distracted. Can you please just repeat the question?
No. It was just if you had any comments about the impact on organizations, about basically access to data. And Frank was talking about the fact that there was just one data officer for the whole pharma industry. But
yeah, I agree. I think that's
type of data.
Yeah, my view on that is that actually it's not one problem. It's many. It's a lot of many different problems. Depending if you're talking about the discovery data regarding molecules, or if you're talking about data regarding biological samples for bioinformatics purposes, transcriptomics, omics, that type of data. Depending if you're talking about patient data or commercial data, I think I kind of share the questioning that whether it's a chief data officer would be able to actually be able to handle such a variety of different problems. So I think of course the chief data officer for me is basically here to promote this question of data, of awareness of the importance of data in different parts of the organization, but it's certainly something which needs to be addressed very differently depending if you're in research, in drug development, in market access, or in commercial part of the organizations, or in manufacturing. So I think that's I would agree. I think that. The chief data officer, I'm not an expert in that, but he's probably just a person whose role would be to push his colleagues in different parts of the organizations to make progress. But I see hardly a unique solution given the heterogeneity of the challenges and problems to solve. Sorry for the.
No worries, Jan. That's pretty good because it's basically turning something that is a challenge into potentially an opportunity to really grow collaborations and to have access to data in a very open and, of course, respectful sharing of knowledge. But that actually, leads me to one question that I'm sure you are all very, very aware of is how to get new drugs on the market with all of those hurdles that we're facing. How to make sure that the EMA and the FDA, because we're talking about drugs today, how will they basically give their green lights with new drugs that will have been developed in a new way? Do you think what we've been facing, such as, let's take again this example of the mRNA vaccines and any type of vaccines or COVID-related new therapeutics, is a kind of new way of working of the agencies? Or, what's your thoughts about this?
I'm happy to take the question for in silico clinical trials. So we had multiple interactions with the FDA and the EMA over the past couple of years. So the FDA received from the US Congress the formal instruction to promote in silico clinical trials in 2018. As a consequence, they launched a pilot program called MIDD for Model Informed Drug Development, with a view to attract tangible use cases with sponsors working with vendors such as Nova on incorporating digital evidence in rationalizing the design of their future studies on human subjects. So the process is still ongoing at the agency, but they are refining good simulation practices so that eventually in silico clinical trials can become part and parcel of a dossier. So I would say that there's a strong drive both from the FDA and the EMA working actually in lockstep on this particular topic, as with many other topics, and it's only a matter of, well, let's not say months, but rather years before we have a very stable and clear framework for virtual patients to, for instance, let's say that you want to secure emergency approval for your products. The agency might say, well, I'm okay with a reduced pivotal study, smaller sample size, shorter duration, but I would like to have in silico as a complement to this more focused study, together with the commitment by the sponsor to continue the phase 4 study post-market approval. But that's a smart way to accelerate the process, as well as using, for instance, synthetic control arms.
If I may contribute to the discussion, I think the big issue is the sensitivity to the safety issues. That's what will be the big challenge to overcome, because actually we see in this period of pandemics and a very high consciousness of the urgency, how pharma has been able to approve drugs very fast, but then we see the backlash with the AstraZeneca vaccine, and very quickly, you see that the community wants drugs, of course, new drugs, patients want new drugs, but nobody is ready to accept, the risk associated to those new drugs. And I think that when we are talking about those very rare events, which are very difficult to detect, with even with large clinical trials, I think that will be the big challenge, which we will have to overcome, because once a drug is on the market, there can be potentially very big, negative impact for pharma companies if the drug is considered as unsafe, and for everyone actually. So we have seen many scandals, over the recent years. So I think that when the technologies that will be able to predict better and to avoid even rare safety issues in new drugs, that will enable to I think to make a quantum leap in terms of how drugs are developed and approved. But as long as we are still trying to figure out this critical thing, which actually Ictos is not involved in at all. So I take no responsibility in this. I think it will still remain a challenge for the years to come. But Virginie may probably be, more, knowledgeable about this issue.
I don't know, but I can share with you maybe some update important, I think, in France. I think it's important to mention that regulatory agency have made an overall significant progress to better take into account the impact of artificial intelligence in the health technology assessment. So after FDA, after EMA, what we need absolutely to get the green line of the French regulator. And in October 2020, the HAS, so the health La Haute Autorité de Santé, updated its evaluation criteria for medical device to integrate artificial intelligence technology. So I think it's important to mention that. And also recently, last February, they also published the first classification of digital solution in healthcare. So that's probably the basics, the foundation that we need. Now, we know that when it comes to drug evaluation, we still have a lot of work to do. But again, there is some promising thinking ongoing at the moment, and especially on the increasing the use of advanced real-world analytics in evaluation. You know, the purpose really now, it's as we generate more and more real-world data, we need really to ensure that it will be recognized by the regulator as an evidence in R&D for sure, so in the approval, but also in the HTA process. So now it's ongoing, and maybe we can mention here the work that have been done by the Strategic Committee of Healthcare Industry. You may know that the CSF is a room of dialogue between publics and private. It's all pharma industry, medical device, but also digital. And they, for more than 1 year now, they are working all together, and they just published clear recommendation about this usage as recognition of evidence, of real-world evidence. So I think it's important. Everything is published now. You can really find that on the website of ARIS. And you will find here some very pedagogical information to explain exactly what is real-world evidence, what you can find with them, what you can learn with them, and also regarding different algorithms. And there is also recommendation to concrete action to really transform the healthcare system. So meaning that we're talking about data quality and standardization and interoperability. We discussed that just before, but also to guarantee and transparency of the data analysis method, and also to create framework to improve real-world evidence consideration in the evaluation. So that, again, that a strong foundation that we now need to all embrace, all stakeholders, public and private. But I think it's really a good and promising way of doing that to ensure that this new technology and this new kind of data will really benefit to the good of health.
Maybe I can add also that you know that the French organization, the pharma organization, the LEM in France, a just signed with le Comité économique des produits de santé, an economical body for evaluation of drugs, the fact that digital working and digital investment could be highlighted in the valuation of the therapeutic offer. So this is a premiere in France also. And you see that there is a lot of efforts coming from digital actors, data actors, and pharma in the same sense to maybe evaluate more in the future what could be integrated solution with digital solution.
Yes.
Do you want to add something?
Yes, certainly.
To interrupt.
Okay, as mentioned by my colleagues, there is a lot going on at the regulatory level with respect to devices and digital therapeutic solutions. But coming back to drug development, in my opinion, and again, I will echo François, I think the regulatory acceptance is really a challenge as of today with respect to the documentation of clinical efficacy using computational methods, because selecting a therapeutic target or identifying a candidate drug is not a problem, in that, you know, at the end of the day, you will have to generate empirical data in wet labs, I mean classical data, to document that yes, the drug is efficacious. Now it's about documenting the efficacy with a growing interest, as you know, in those virtual clinical studies, virtual patients, most particularly virtual patients receiving, so to speak, placebo. In some diseases such as cancer or rare diseases, it's interesting, obviously, to have a virtual placebo group, which you can model on the basis of data you can gather from real-world evidence. And I think that's very interesting. And on top of that, I think, and to me, this is the next big revolution in the field. The industry hopefully is going towards doing real virtual clinical studies on the basis of modeling complex diseases as biological system assembling genes or proteins involved in the causality of the molecule, and then it's possible to put the system as a set of equations and trying to perturb in silico the system with your drug on the basis of a pharmacokinetics biodistribution modeling. I think that in this regard, we need really to discuss with regulatory authorities on one hand how they will accept those data, not as a total substitute of clinical studies, obviously, but how they will use those data in articulation, in conjunction with real world clinical studies. Because what is very important for us is, at the end of the day, if we can do part of the job, so to speak, in silico, as you can imagine, faster, and I would say, obviously, much less costly, and then, of course, doing in the real world confirmatory clinical studies. So I think this is really something which we need to discuss with regulatory authorities, and I understand that there is a lot of interest as well on their side.
That's very insightful, and maybe just to basically link the two previous topics we discussed is that we also need to think of how to basically improve the knowledge and make sure that the regulatory people working with the agencies will have that deep understanding of the reality of artificial intelligence, and that actually makes the perfect connection to the next panel discussion in 4 minutes precisely. But before jumping into this other specific and key topics, maybe I would ask each of you to finish with one sentence. I'm going to be very critical about that. In one sentence, what is your advice for people for the audience today? The ball is yours, Virginie, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you again for your invitation. I would say that I think that in France we are fortunate. We have a lot of and promising startups. We have also a national ambition to position France as a leader in artificial intelligence. We get governmental affairs and industrial players mobilized on this digital shift in health. So I think that we have a lot of green light, but you know that the competition is also international. So we know that now we have to accelerate. And my guess is really to continue and to ensure that all the players of the ecosystem, both from private and publics, continue to work together in the same goals and with the same objective.
Thanks, Virginie. Thanks for being here today. Philippe, your turn.
Well, I would say, obviously, we have today an audience interested in AI, so there's no need for us to tell them keep your interest, and we're definitely, I think, out of the hype period, and we're now entering into, I would say, money time, as they say in basketball in the USA. My suggestion would be for the people connected today to really think about how artificial intelligence can help them doing things that they are doing, but in a different, faster, better way, and most particularly if they have a capacity by capturing the value of data to predict the future, to have predictive models, and I think that's basically a general, I would say, statement.
Thanks, Philippe. Thanks, Philippe. And the crystal ball goes now to Jan.
Well, somebody said, I don't remember whom, but it's very famous. You know, it's very hard to make predictions, especially concerning the future.
Yeah.
So, and that's true actually. Also in our line of work in AI for small molecules drug discovery. But that's really the that's also what's it's an exciting challenge. No, I think that I want to highlight the importance of building strong collaborations between the actors of the pharma industry in France and AI startups, or in general startups. And I think that one of the weaknesses of our country is the fact that the R&D the pharma R&D in France is some kind of in pain, with many big companies more or less disinvesting. I'm not talking Servier, but everyone knows who I'm talking about. And I think that it's kind of it's not ideal for AI startup companies to build strong R&D collaborations with the pharma industry in France. And typically, at Ictos, we had a very nice 2-year collaboration with Janssen, and it was in Belgium. But we so I think that's. I just want to encourage, decision makers in French pharma companies to understand the importance of supporting this very dynamic ecosystem of young and young technology-driven startup companies, and to invest in those companies, and also understand that it takes time also to progress the technology, and to it's not something which happens overnight. And if you just want to, if pharma wants to collaborate with AI companies expecting the magic bullet for tomorrow, that's not the right approach.
François?
I'll make it short in the interest of time. My recommendation to those tech providers and tech companies: under-promise, over-deliver.
Nice one. Franck, would you like one word to close?
I would say beyond the hype of IA, it's now to go in a deep project and reality before that others go in. And that once I will get the data and that have already the technology could also challenge existing fund company.
Thanks. Thank you so much to the 5 of you for being here today. I've actually noted 3 words out of all the discussions. They all start with an O. It's about optimization, it's about opportunities, and about being optimistic about the future. We don't know where we're going, but we know we're going, and smiling and all looking forward to it. Thank you so much for participating, and have a wonderful day. Franck, you're still in line for the next roundtable.
Thank you.
Bye. Everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Tawid. We are waiting for Pascal.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it's okay.
Sure.
Yes, so, we had some connection problems, so I hope it will be okay. So thank you, Julie.
You're very welcome, Pascal. Have a wonderful panel discussion.
Thank you very much. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm Pascal Jordan. I'm strategic partner at l'Alliance. Welcome to this third panel discussion on artificial intelligence in health. This one is dedicated to education. So after interesting discussion on clinical and regulatory evaluation and on artificial intelligence application in the drug development process, we are going to talk about training needs and capabilities. For this, I have with me two brilliant speakers. First of all, Frank Lemaire. So Frank was participating at the previous panel discussion, but for the one who joined only now, I will present him anyway. So Frank is a pharmacist and is graduated in HEC Business School. He has 24 years of experience in the pharma industry at several positions, both global and operational. He is the founder and CEO of Tech2Med, a consulting company dedicated to health tech. Tech2Med motto is to create a better link between high-speed technologies innovation and the pharma industry, and in other words, how technologies impact pharma agenda from R&D to the patient support. My second speaker is Dawit Tiwi. He is an expert and a serial entrepreneur in the field of higher education and learning. He holds a doctorate in management science and a leadership development program in higher education of the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Dawit is a professor of performance management. He is the founder and chairman and dean of Aivancity, a new school, hybrid school built around the triptych artificial intelligence, business, and ethics. I will start this panel discussion in following up on some aspect that has been mentioned during the previous panel on industry acculturation. And I will start with Frank. What is the situation in the pharma industry nowadays in terms of artificial intelligence comprehension, and what is the need for specific training and education?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everybody. What I could say is that as a training company, because we are a certified training company, we do operate some training session for pharma. We don't do, very, very deep tech IA training session, data science, etc. But what we do is a kind of acculturation and try to help our client to have a better understanding what is the use field, the framework for IA impact on their agenda. What I could say is that 2-3 years ago, IA in pharma was a kind of hype. Okay, we were speaking about IA, but I think a lot of the people I was discussing with was not really aware of what is IA. You have different layers of IA, different complexity of IA, and different use cases of IA. So what we see is that there is a need for better comprehension and depend of kind of population, but there is a need for different population of what is the field of possibilities to use IA in the pharma agenda. So you have what has been said in the previous roundtable about R&D. IA can set new drug discovery and can really, or doing clinical trials in silico, digital twins, modelization, etc. And this was part of the vision. But you have also other applications where IA could help patient support, patient finding, in rare disease, when you use doctors to find the right patient in amongst a longer patient with different symptoms. So there is really more an approach with where and how IA could help your proposition, value proposition. And we don't see yet any data science teams, large teams using data and working on data. I think most of the time pharma is working with external company to apply some technologies like that.
Thank you, Frank. Dawit, we are speaking here about end users of artificial intelligence application. How the education community or how your school is addressing these needs in terms of training and education.
Hello, everyone. The problem that we have in our educational system in France, especially, but in other countries in the world, is the disciplinary structure of our universities and research institutions. This is the main problem that we have today, and which is not a good solution to improve and to develop use of AI and data science within the medical sector. We consider that to train doctors and pharmacists, we mainly and even sometimes only need to give them medical knowledge and skills. However, to be able to anticipate, to understand, to develop the use of AI and data science in the medical sector, it is necessary to deeply understand at least challenges and opportunities behind these technologies, and then be able to make the link between healthcare from one side and AI from the other side. So it's not sufficient to just add knowledge or overlap skills like we are doing actually in our educational sector to reach this real hybridization of disciplines, which is, in my point of view, the only way to accelerate innovation and AI integration in the medical sector. So we need to reinvent completely our pedagogical model, our engineering of programs, in order to give knowledge and skills in AI and data science for all the students in medical studies from the beginning of their program, and not at the end or as an additional skills after they are already graduates, because we need to integrate that during their internships, during their experience, and during their studies to create this real hybridization between technology from one side, AI particularly here, and medical aspects. And this integration is completely different of the way we are taking into consideration innovation in general and technology in our cases, with a disciplinary approach, which not fit the real need of acceleration of use of technology in healthcare sector today.
Thank you, David. Frank, do you have a reaction to that? Because in your practice, you are talking mainly to pharma people. So most of them have a scientific background more than a mathematic or engineer background. So do you have a reaction to what David said?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think what we have in pharma is most of the time people coming from medical field and or scientific field, but on life science field, and so they work but we don't see double competencies of someone that is really having in both course of from a doctor medical with data science in its course. So it's very rare to see that. There are some bioinformatics leaders and data science leaders that are really more of the time not in pharma but in startup today, because they do develop their own company using their knowledge of medicine and their knowledge of data science. So they do develop some solution for pharma or for doctors. But what it's clear. I agree with what you said, Tawit, because it's really important that we don't see a structure of pedagogy and academic which is really integrated with medical science. So what we see is that there are some data science studio that can really accept some people working in pharma for a long period. They come with project, and so what they do is to develop with some teachers that are data science or AI specialists to develop methodology, education, and they go to the end. They go end to end to the project. It means that they can be really integrate for 1 year in a studio and to work. So we see some new approach coming with that. I know people that is having his own experience with that. I take the medical team that is in charge of developing data algorithm or data treatment, and they come in my studio and I help them to get the competencies, to get the methodology, and to go to the end of to go to the output of the project.
Thank you. If we go to from users of artificial intelligence tools to the one who are creating the solutions, so the data scientists. So what's the offer? In, sorry, what's the offer in France? I mean, how they are trained, how they are prepared, and what's the position of France versus international proposal for data scientist training? And also, is there a specificity? We can discuss that on the last part of the discussion, but is there a specificity to work with health data? So maybe Tawhid, you can start with what's the situation in France?
Yeah, my answer will be in two parts, because we have two missions as a higher education institution. The first one is to deliver knowledge, and the second one is to produce knowledge. And here we'll just make the difference between the two parts of our missions. So delivering, we have two different approaches in France. The engineering schools from one side, with a focus on the technical aspects of AI, more maths, computer science, etc. And the business schools from the other, with more acculturation programs or courses with deep practice and understanding without deep practice and understanding of the different bricks of AI ecosystem. However, the implementation of AI solution in organizations is not just technical issue. It requires an in-depth technical knowledge of the issues related to business management and the whole spectrum associated to matters of feasibility, validity, acceptability, trust, and responsibility of artificial intelligence. This is why it was, and it is today, necessary to reinvent and to invent a new educational model beyond these traditional disciplinary frontiers. And we need to train future experts in artificial intelligence in the both aspects and in an integrated way. That's why Aivancity invested this field that lies between the two pillars of excellence in France, which are engineering schools and management and business schools, which is in positioning which successfully demonstrated in some world-class institutions such as Stanford University or the EPFL in Lausanne, which makes real hybridization in the way of creating and delivering knowledge. The second part of the answer is considering the produce, how to produce knowledge. Even if we try to create or to give to medical jobs or to data scientists double competencies, double skills in the different aspects, if we continue to produce knowledge with a disciplinary way, that's mean from one side we produce medical science and healthcare knowledge and research, and from the other side we have research focused on only technical aspects, we will never succeed to create the receipt. And the receipt is not the ingredients. You know, there is a big difference between taking ingredients and putting things in addition and create the real receipts, which creates the food that we want to create, which is really something more than just putting things together. And this needs another way to create knowledge and to cut with these barriers that we are creating in our education system. In Aivancity, we try to create specialized programs to prepare engineer, what we call engineer, not only to answer this need of technology and improving technology using the potential of data and artificial intelligence, but also able to work for the progress of humanity in all the fields when considering the ethical rules, which are very, very important when we speak about AI and data science. And there is another challenge also, which is important, I think, which is the upskilling of different jobs and functions and industries to help different bodies to upgrade their skills and understand AI challenges and its impact on their jobs. So I think that the structure that we have today, when we are facing innovation, the disciplinary structure, which is more linked to the history of producing knowledge, when we are speaking about such revolution like AI, we need to completely reinvent the way we are considering and we are producing our knowledge and our programs.
I think that today we see emerging course. There is a lot of things that has been developed. For example, for doctors, they could go to a kind of IA and health course for 200 hours in hospital in Paris. This is what we call a DU, diplôme universitaire, bioinformatics. So you have some, but at the end, most of the time they have a kind of layer of acculturation, but they don't have the way real. They have the methodology, but they don't have the knowledge of data science and to do it. So this is more people that could lead team or develop a team about data science. We see that we have an important cluster, as you said, Awid, coming from engineer school. For example, Polytechnique and the X in France, École Polytechnique, has developed a real franchise in artificial intelligence. And most of the time, people from AI X have developed their own company, as for example Yann Fleureau at Gilia that has created Cardiologues, which is an example of French company working in science. So when I listen to them, to the two guys, they are speaking like doctors. They know very well cardiology. Never I will see a doctor speaking of data science, or very, very rare. But most of the time I see some engineer able to really have a deep understanding of medicine. So this is really an observation. You have also French courses that are more and more organized by a new cluster, Health Data Hub. Last week you have a kind of 2 days training course with MIT, but it is more about like it's a roundtable to speak about use case. So for me it's acculturation also. And you have some cluster as Prairie, which are a kind of organization to develop IA application but I think I don't know what is the best pathway to be to have people that are able to address both methodology and both health data understanding and treatment, because you need to understand medicine to see what is behind health data. And I don't see what is the best pathway. It can be engineer going to medicine, but do we have to do a double training? I don't know.
Yeah, well, from what I understood, it seems that we see more engineer going to the medical aspect than the contrary, and this is part of the question. I mean, how the medical community, and especially at the hospital, can see, and they may see artificial intelligence as a kind of competition for what they are doing, and how can we reassure them? And usually the way to reassure people is to give them the way to understand the technique. So I know that Frank, for example, you are more familiar with the industrial view, but do you have an idea of how the hospital community see the artificial intelligence and how we can help them to be reassured? And maybe Tawid, you can also react on what specifically can do the education community on that.
Yeah, I have just one remark before answering this question, because we are speaking about technology and medical aspects, but we are forgetting one thing, which is very, very important when we speak about artificial intelligence. AI, for my point of view, is not only a technical challenge, it's societal challenge. The real challenge behind AI, it's not coding and techniques and machine learning and algorithms. The real challenge behind AI, it's impact on humanity, ethical challenges, societal challenges. Because AI currently raises many questions regarding its impact on human being and society. It is essential today to accelerate AI's application while considering the evolution of medical practices, and society expectations. So we must be able not only to develop computer programs and speed up companies' performance, but also to allow humanity to make progress in all areas, while at the same time ensuring that technological evolutions are involved in the development of a fairer and more just world and more ethical and human one. Within the medical sector especially, where the human aspect is very, very important, it's sometimes difficult to mix that with machines, data, and AI. So more than any other sector, we need to consider the ethical and societal challenges behind the AI. Today, this powerful technology creates a novel set of ethical challenges that must be identified and mitigated since AI technology has tremendous capability to threaten patient preference, safety, privacy, etc., etc. So we have a lot of challenges, societal and ethical challenges. We could speak about data privacy. We know it is very, very important. Problem of bias. We think that AI as an arbiter of neutrality, but when fed biased data, it turns sometimes on real bad results. Explicability of medical decision, robustness of algorithms, safety, and it's very, very important not only to consider and have a focus on these technical aspects. The AI of tomorrow will be no code or low code, even if medical jobs and people working in healthcare doesn't understand very well and don't practice very well the technology. It's not the challenge, but they need to understand the societal challenge behind, the ethical challenge behind, because they are, and only they are, will guarantee this durability and the fact that AI that we are putting in place is an AI of trust and responsibility.
Frank, do you have a reaction on that, and especially on the sensitivity of health data?
Yeah, I agree on that. The best example that we have in medicine is diagnostic phase. It means that, a lot of AI proof of concept is about pictures analysis, scanner, IRM. So today, what we see is that for doctors, it is a strong help for them to gain time to diagnostic and to help the patient, especially when you have you lose time sending. You lose time, and sometimes you have also a diagnostic error because because the doctors have sometimes issue of timing, issue of bandpass to work, and so they are not afraid today to be helped by machine but for the diagnostic. But they keep the diagnostic for ethical reason also. That's at the end there is also always a doctor for medical legal issue to take the decision. But the machine really can help the doctor to be more specific and be very rapid to have the diagnostic. So this is something that at the beginning was very challenged by the doctors, because we were speaking about replacing the doctors. And today what we see is that the doctor still having the last word and still keeping its decision power, but it's just having on top of that advice, recommendation, interpretation that could really gain time for him and for the patient. And at the end, doctor has accepted that AI is as efficient as the doctor. You don't have superiority clinical study comparing doctors, diagnostic, and machine, but what you have is non-inferiority study, is that the machine, the machine is doing as well as the doctor. But we know that in all the competitions that we have between machine and doctors, look at this China example with neurologists a few years ago. The machine has found all the diagnostic in a few minutes, and the doctors were the team doctors were always speaking for the first case about within 1 hour. So there is no issue on using it, but there is an ethical mindset that says that at the end the human is always deciding.
Yeah, thank you. I think that legal aspect of intelligence artificial, we can have a full panel discussion on that with legal people and doctors and artificial intelligence experts, because I think it's also a key point for the future and for the better understanding and acceptance of acceptability of the artificial intelligence. So we are at the end of this panel discussion and the end of this whole morning dedicated to artificial intelligence. Thank you very much, both of you. Thank you to all our speakers of this morning. I think it was very interesting, and we learned a lot about this new, very hyped topic of artificial intelligence in health. So thank you again very much, both of you. And we have more presentation this afternoon, but they are less technical, I would say. We have some presentation of health incubator in France, and also we have a pitch contest at 3:30, I think. No, 3 pitch contest for small startup companies in France. So thank you. Have a nice lunch, and we will see you again this afternoon. Bye.
Bye bye, David. Bye bye, Pascal.